Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Sean Blaque, aka DFS 5050. You can follow me on Instagram at DFS 5050 or at Sean Blaque, SeanBlaque. Of course, for the Sean Blaque, it's more for music and lifestyle. And for DFS 5050 is solely and purely for all DFS action. We have a wonderful Wednesday slate here. It's going to be a very interesting one. Yesterday, honestly, it was just not. It was just a weird day. Um, as far as doing lineup builder shows on Mondays and Tuesdays, that's literally almost impossible for me to do so because on Mondays and Tuesdays, I'm in the studio from 12 to 6. So very seldomly get any chance to do any research, and which leads me to a couple of pointers that I want to share with you guys. One, if you don't have the time to do the research that you need to get your lineups in order, don't play that day. You know, if for some reason, you started doing some research and then things started getting, you know, a little hectic, and then you try to throw a lineup in the last minute, don't do it. Don't throw good money at bad lineups. Don't throw good money at lineups that are not going to cash. Don't rush the process. It's okay to miss a couple of days of NBA action. We still have a full, 2.5 months left of NBA action before we move on to the next set of DFS sport, which is MLB, which is actually starting to become one of my favorite ones. But in any case, don't throw good money at bad lineups. Don't rush the process. And if you don't have time to do the research, don't throw no lineups in whatsoever. Now, if you're still itching to do so, like I was yesterday, you're better off going to like Fantasy Labs or Roto Grinders or Daily Fantasy Nerd, as you see right in front of you, where you can just get a generated lineup and just put it up and see what happens. Okay, so but highly recommend you don't do that. I'm telling you from experience, I've lost money like that. However, this weekend was actually pretty good. Sunday was kind of and then Monday was more of a but it's whatever. This is Wednesday, Lineup Builder Show. Let's get to it. So as you see, we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games tonight. Usually on Wednesday, we usually have about 12, but I think some of that was shared with yesterday's slate. With that being said, we got Charlotte, Orlando. The over-under on that is 207.5. We have Indiana, Boston with a 206. Detroit, Chicago, 199. Mind you, Chicago's on a back-to-back, so be mindful of that. Philly, OKC would have a 218.5 over-under. Atlanta and Washington with a 215 over-under. Cleveland and Denver, 227.5 over under. I'm sure that everyone is going to be targeting that game there. Milwaukee and Sacramento, Milwaukee by 5. The over under is 199. And New York and Utah, that's going to be 202.5. Okay, so as we're looking at all this information here, let me do this here. Let me switch this over. As we're looking at all this information, I'm thinking that it should be pretty interesting. Right now there was some news that I was looking at earlier, like Jahlil Okafor is questionable. Jeff Green for the Orlando Magic is out. So, please keep that in mind if those are any one of the players that you have in your existing lineups right now. 1 second here. I'm trying to find a play here. Well, let's play this one right here. 25,000. All right. So anyway, let me see if I have anything here. Let me look at something. What I'm trying to do, I need to get my chat up and going so that I can communicate with you guys in the midst of all of this. Okay. So let's do it like this. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. So, anyways, with no further ado, today what we have available for you. Um, at the top of my list, we have Isaiah Thomas, Bradley Beal, Dennis Schroeder, Russell Westbrook, Kemba Walker, Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, Kyrie Irving, Terrence Ross, Enes Kanter, Okafor, Butler, Wall, Rose, Antetokounmpo, Ersan Ilyasova, Wilson Chandler, LeBron James, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jackson, and Vucevic. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about today with my particular lineup is that I say about 75 to 80% of the players that I just mentioned on the top end of my list, they are all in the mix with what I've had handwritten as far as who's given up the most points or fantasy points to the opposing position. So Isaiah Thomas did not make that cut. Bradley Beal did make the cut. So let's look at Bradley Beal and see what kind of matchup he has tonight against Atlanta. Now, is actually a fairly good matchup. Actually, it's a really good matchup. Atlanta doesn't do well against shooting guards. They usually allow a lot of points to shooting guards. But let's see historically what has he done against Atlanta. As you can see, back in January, the end of January, he did only 24.2 fantasy points. And a time before that, he did at 5,300, he did 31.9, and then at 62, he did 16. Of course, Atlanta right now is dealing with some injury issues. Honestly, I'm thinking to myself that they're going to really have a tough time. They're having some injury issues in the paint, so I don't think there's going to be really too much of a defensive situation going on there. If you see previously in the last season, he hasn't fared well against Atlanta, even at the 5,500 price tag. With that, and I think around that time, you got to think last year he was going through a lot of injuries, especially with the ankle and the thigh and all that good stuff like that. So right now, with 1 day's rest, he's projected to do about 34.1 according to DFS Nerds projections. My projections is stating that he's going to do about 43. And then, of course, you see the over-under here is at 215. So it's one of the higher over-unders. And on top of that, he's playing at home. So, I like the idea of having Bradley Beal there. His price is down to 78, which is a discount of 300, so to speak. So let's see. Before, I don't know if y'all remember a couple of shows ago, I was telling you his price was up like 3,300 by 3,300. So now he's at a reasonable price. Not much of a bargain, but the consistency is there, and he does have a 33% chance of upside. The plus minus is okay. It's not necessarily the best, but I like Bradley Beal. I want to plug him in. And you know what, guys? I want to make another side note. Again, a couple of days ago, I believe it was Sunday. I felt like I kind of rushed the process when I was doing my lineup builder show, and that was due to some personal things that I had to take care of. And I want to emphasize: do not rush the process. Take as much time as you need to make sure that you have the right plays in order and the right thought process behind the reason why you have those plays in order, because it's really going to determine whether or not you're going to cash big or not cash at all, or break even or suffer a small loss. So, those are the options that end up are being afforded to you when you do what you're supposed to do. When you don't do what you're supposed to do, then it's going to be more on a negative end than it is on the positive. So I just want to kind of keep that in mind. Want y'all to keep that in mind as you're working on your lines, okay? All right, so we have Bradley Beal in the mix. We have about 6,500 per player left to roll with. Let's see, Dennis Schroeder historically against John Wall. Let's see what we have. Okay. Right now, the DVP matchup is not looking all that great. However, Dennis Schroeder is, let's see, let me look at my paper here. He's actually number 2 on my list of players to target in the point guard position. Against John Wall and company, at 5,900, he did 28.9 fantasy points. When at the beginning of the season, he only managed to hit 17.4 fantasy points with them. Last time he played against them, they lost. He only managed to do 12.5 fantasy points there. Right now, considering that Paul Millsap is out, and you have a lot of backups coming in. Kent Bazemore's out as well. So, you know, a lot of the workload is going on basically the new starting 5, which is, well, basically the top 3 guys you want to hit on the Atlanta team would be Schroeder, Tim Hardaway Jr., and Cephalosha. And if not Cephalosha, Ersan Ilyasova, because Ersan historically has done well. I believe he has done well against Washington, but we'll get to that in a few. Dennis Schroeder, 7,200. You know, his usage rate has increased a whole lot since Paul Millsap and Kent Bazemore is out. So there's a lot more responsibility on his end. He is facing this team away from home. Let's see what big of a difference it is with him being at home as far as to being away. As you can see, at home, it's not much of a difference. He's pretty much kind of consistent, especially when he's not in trouble or he's not getting benched by the coach. So let's go ahead and plug in Dennis Schroeder. All right. Okay, so the next person on my list is Russell Westbrook. Well, he had a bad outing against Golden State. Pro tip, Russell Westbrook against Golden State, you're not going to see your fantasy points. You're not going to see the 60, 70, 80 that he's normally usually able to hit against other teams. Golden State always has his number. You know, whether Durant was there or not, they always have his number. They always blow that team out. You know what I mean? The only time they didn't blow them out was last season when they had Kevin Durant at OKC. So pro tip, fade Westbrook against Golden State. Just saying. Just something that, you know. But he's playing against Philadelphia. For the sake of the show, his DVP matchup is not all that, but his usage is like stupid. It's 43. All the points, all the distribution, all the facilitation is going through Russell Westbrook. You be somewhat of an idiot to not play him tonight. At least in your cash lines. You know, GPP, you know, you could probably find value elsewhere. We can get a 40-point upside and all that good stuff. But the over-under is high enough and the opportunities are there where he is able to do whatever it is that he needs to do to be successful as the number 1 guy on the team. The one-man army. I mean, might as well call him that. Okay. Last time they played, when he was at 12,000, he basically barely met value. He was at 4.8 times the money. He only did 57.9. But his free throw percentage was pretty good. Field goal was pretty decent, 52%. You know, he's usually prone to do higher. So, you know, he's going to take a large chunk of our money, but, you know, he's definitely worth the play. So, Russell Westbrook, plug him in. Now we're down to 32. We're at 53, about 5,300 per player. Let's move on to the next player that we want to use. Kemba Walker, nah, we already got a point guard. We already got our 2 point guards there. And Kemba Walker wasn't even on my list either. Paul George, although he's a good play, I know they're trying to go for a playoff run. He's not on my list either, so I'm gonna skip him. And mind you, guys, when I say the person's not on my list, what I'm doing is I'm filling in the players that are matching what I have on my optimizer as well as matching on what teams are allowing the most fantasy points to that respective position. Okay, now when I fill in all the positions, and then if I decide I need to go back and fill in those positions, and if I have enough salary cap to fit them in there, I'll fit them in there. You know what I mean? Or if I need to, I'll create another lineup and build from there. Okay. Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony, dear God Almighty. Do y'all see this right here? Carmelo Anthony is 6,900. Carmelo Anthony is 6,900, y'all. Anytime Carmelo Anthony is under 7,500 dollars or less. Oh, I'm sorry. Anytime he's under $7,500, you plug that dude in without fail. Plug him in. Set forget. You know, at that rate, you're gonna get the numbers that you need out of him. He might just get you above my projection here, which is 39.68. You know, which will put him right around 5.5, 6 times the money, and he probably could do more because Utah, they are like dead last in the league against small forwards. So just something to think about. Last time LeBron played against them, you know, he did a number on them. Okay, so just something to think about, guys. Carmelo Anthony, 6,900. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. All right. At the same time, let's look at some recent numbers on him. The thing is, this is where the DVP can be a little misleading because overall, Utah is a very, very defensive team. They're one of the top defenses in the NBA. But as you can see, I don't know whether they should have a price here, but he did score 42 fantasy points against them, even though the DVP was kind of bad. And the reason the DVP is saying negative is because, you know, they're used to having Derek Favors and Rudy and Hood in there all playing at the same time, just, you know, really putting that stop on people. But that hasn't been the case, and it hasn't been popping as of late. A lot of teams have been hitting them hard, and you know, he's gonna have the room that he needs to perform and to do his thing. So in this situation, with him being under 6,900, him having the highest usage on the team, you know, just plug him in. You know, plug him in, and hopefully you'll be able to thank me later. Okay. You got Kyrie Irving. We have Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross. I like Terrence Ross, and he's definitely one of those picks that you definitely would want to have in the mix. He is not on the list, but he's definitely somebody that I would like to use. And I probably would pair him up with a LeBron James, you know, to save myself some salary or whatever like that. But all right, anyway, we're moving on. And actually, Terrence Ross is not a power forward. He's actually a small forward. All right, sorry about that. I seem to always do that from time to time. But anyways, Enes Kanter is next. And Kanter in my list is basically number one. You know, and the thing about it is, you know, every slate is going to have a different set of set of teams playing against each other. So some rank higher than the others, you know, and the amount of Fanduel points is given to the opposing team or awarded to the opposing team. Kanter is definitely someone that I would like to play. 31.91 is his projection. His floor is about 26.18. Overall values at 31.5. Let's look at Kanter. because there's another pivot play off of Cantor if you don't want to use Cantor tonight, and I will share that with you shortly. But for the sake of this, his DVP right now is at 11% and is looking pretty good against Philadelphia. I think they kind of miss Nerlens Noel, but no one's going to ever say that right away. Last time he played them at around the same salary, plus or minus 400, he scored about 35.4 fantasy points. And then, of course, he had that brief stint where he injured his hand there, as you can see. But 1 day's rest, 26.5. Away, 25.4. He's at home, which is, 20 at home, 23.6. The opponents allow 26.5, or more to the position. And for him to be 5,500, he can easily meet value, and the use is definitely there. Another person that y'all might want to consider looking at in that same game will be Taj Gibson. Even though the DVP is not looking all that hot, he is becoming more of a factor in that offense and defense. And Taj Gibson, when he was playing with Chicago, he at 5,300 he was averaging 21.7 fantasy points against Philadelphia. Of course, that was one game that he didn't play, so the sample size might be small, but that's definitely somebody that y'all might want to consider at 4,200. Can get you at least 5x. Potentially getting you a little bit more than 5x. So that's just somebody that you might want to be able to pivot off to, because the power forward position tends to excel against Philadelphia. Another person is Sabonis. Let's see. No. Is this Sabonis? Yeah, Sabonis. Even though he's kind of in the back seat of everything, he's definitely somebody that you may want to consider at that minimal salary. Or Grant. Let's look at Grant. And, of course, Grant hasn't really been getting that much play as of late because of Taj being in there. Again, I would say if you really want to pivot off of Cantor, you could definitely go for Sabonis or Taj Gibson. Taj Gibson being number 2, Sabonis being number 3. And, of course, if there's any news coming out, please be mindful of that while you're going there. But for right now, we're going to go towards Cantor. And it's Cantor. All right. Okay. So we went to Cantor. The next person in line will be Jahlil Okafor at 5,200. Let's see what's going on with him. He was questionable from the last time I saw, and I mentioned that to y'all earlier. His DVP is somewhat just right, industry average, I guess, league average. Let's see, last time he played them at 6,300, he only went for 10.6 fantasy points, but that was when he was sharing the ball with a lot of other centers, Joel Embiid. Of course, Joel Embiid is out, and also Nerlens Noel. So the opposing team usually allows they're able to get scored on. Steven Adams, he plays defense, but the thing about it is after a certain time he tends to kind of give up a little bit on the defensive end. He just ends up just fouling and just bringing guys to the line, or whenever he's off the court. OKC doesn't seem to be the defensive team that they can be. So, and Philadelphia, they know how to fight. So, yeah, at 5,200, his range can be anywhere between. Let's see here. His range could be anywhere between 25 and 37 fantasy points, maybe more than that. He's able to hit 40 fantasy points or more. But for right now, we're just going to assume that he will hit his value. He can go for 6x for us today, and go for 30.24. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and plug him in. So, and of course, y'all know that I don't like playing players that are questionable, or game time decisions and none of that. So I'm just plugging him for the sake of the show, and then we're going to keep moving on until we find better options. Because another option that I have at 8,000 is Nikola Vucevic, but of course he's $8,000. So then that means I'll have to move some things around to make it worth my while to plug him in. Another person we have is Jimmy Butler. We have John Wall. We have Derrick Rose. Giannis Antetokounmpo is on my list. So if we were to create a line, you can use him in there. Ersan is not on my list, but it's definitely a salary saver. And he's getting the minutes from Atlanta right now with Millsap being out. And of course, I mentioned him earlier. Wilson Chandler. Actually, let's see here. Wilson Chandler and Gallinari are actually number 2 on my list for small forwards that are that happen to be profitable against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Well, no. Yeah, against the Cleveland Cavaliers, yes, but also the top of the list as far as what teams are giving up the most points to the opposing team in the small forward position. So let's look at Chandler real quick. He's questionable. Don't like that at all. Gallinari, he's doubtful. Okay, so we're just going to skip those guys there. Let's see. Evans. Okay, no. Tyreek Evans was on my list. He's actually a small forward, but they're playing him as a shooting guard. So yeah, he's not even nowhere near there. LeBron James. Let's look at LeBron. I'm not gonna have enough money for LeBron. And actually, I would like LeBron. I probably would like LeBron more than Russell Westbrook, only because he's about $2,000 cheaper. And I really don't want to fade Westbrook. Terrence Ross is on my list. I've been catching wind about Taurean Prince. The thing is, I don't want to create a lineup where I'm throwing in a whole bunch of popular plays, and then you miss out on people who actually can give you 7x, 8x, 10x, things of that nature. Let's see here. I'm gonna remove Okafor, of course. I don't like game time decisions. Looking to see who I would like to have. You know what? We did mention Terrence Ross. And you know what? Since the trade, Terrence Ross has been actually kind of he's been pretty consistent for the most part. One game he didn't really do too well was, I think it was against San Antonio and Charlotte. So let's see. Last time he played Charlotte, 4.4 fantasy points. He played almost 30 minutes. I don't know. He's getting the minutes. So, he's definitely somebody you can plug in. I mentioned Taurean Prince. He's been getting a lot of work in lately. Let's see what he has. Matchup looking pretty decent against Washington. Washington does give up a lot of fantasy points to small forwards. It's just that he was so down on the list. You see, usually when I create my list, I go for the top 7 players. So sometimes it's always good to kind of stretch your faith out and hit the next of kin. So, and then also with that game being one of the higher over under games, I think Tarian Prince deserves somewhat of a nod in tonight's slate. I do forewarn y'all, he is going to be somewhat highly owned, somewhere between 20 and 35%. And in cash games, probably looking at about 35 to 55% owned, maybe more, just because he's damn near minimal salary and can produce. So just be mindful of that. Another player that we have in the mix here is Tim Hardaway Jr. He's at 5,400, 29.7 fantasy points projected. I actually like him. I think he can do well against Washington tonight, and considering that he's getting the minutes, and I think the usage might be there too. Let's take a look at him. DVP is not all that great. Salary-wise is pretty decent. Last time they faced, let's see, he averaged 16.8 fantasy points. He only played 22 minutes. So right now he's been averaging 30 minutes per game. So he's at least in the last four or five, he's been averaging well over 25 fantasy points per game, give or take. Matter of fact, let me do a better calculation of that for y'all. Let's see. Yeah. About say about 25. Sorry, never mind. 25 or better. So at 5,400, he's definitely somebody that you definitely want to take a look at. Let's see, shooting guards. All right. So now let's see, we're down to power forward and a center, and we have 5,150 left, or 10,300 for the remainder two. I really like Vucevic a lot. Reggie Jackson is someone that you could definitely play. You don't really know where he is with the coach, but Reggie Jackson's minutes are around 27.31. When he does play, he's almost at about a point, 1 fantasy point per minute when he does play. Yeah. If I do play him, the thing is with Reggie Jackson, of course, you can't trust the minutes too much. He is going against Chicago. They played last night. They pretty much ran themselves into overtime. I'm not even sure if they actually won or not. I didn't get a chance to watch those games last night, but we can find out right now. Let's see if they won or lost. They lost. Okay, 120 to 122. Of course, Jimmy Butler went crazy. Totally missed that play, but whatever. They're on a back-to-back. Some teams do well in back-to-back. Some teams do not. I don't have that correlation play with the whole back-to-back scenario, but let's look at the plus minuses on the point guards here. Of course, Russell Westbrook is being high. Kyrie Irving is being next. Elfrid Payton is number 3 on the list against Charlotte. And Elfrid Payton is playing at home. You got John Wall, Michael Brogdon, Dennis Schroeder. Let's see. Isaiah Thomas, Jeff Teague, Rondo, George Hill. Yeah, so 7,200, 7,100. Elfrid Payton is actually number 4 on my list with the point guards that are awarded a lot of fantasy points on Fanduel. This is where it starts to get a little interesting. Let's look at something here. LeBron James, positive matchup. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're not fading Westbrook. We're just gonna put him in another lineup. We're gonna remove Carmelo Anthony, even though he's number 1 on the list, and we're gonna put LeBron James at 11-1. Okay, and what we're gonna do here is we're gonna put. Let's see. We could put Teague or Peyton. Fairly good matchups. I like Peyton at home. Let's take a look at Alfred Payton. Usage is about 22. Matchup is but Alfred Payton has been showing out as of late. He's been averaging over 25 fantasy points. Well, actually over 30 fantasy points over the last 6. Against Charlotte, he's pretty solid at 30 fantasy points. Last time they played, he didn't do that well. Let's see, did he do that well? Yeah, 20.8. So you could say 20.8 might be his floor, but his ceiling is through the roof, guys. This dude is a badass. So definitely Alfred Payton. All right. So remember, I was telling you guys that I really liked Vucevic. So now with the amount of money that I have now, Vucevic in the mix. And let's see what kind of lineup we have with him. He has a positive matchup. Got a positive matchup with him. You also have a situation where if you don't want to pay for Vucevic and you see value elsewhere, you could pay down to Zeller. That's something that you can definitely do. On my list, of course, Vucevic is up there, $8,044. At $8,000, he's projected to score 44 fantasy points. He has a floor of about 37. Something to think about. Let's see here. I want to take a look at something here. Okay, question. Well, that's what I thought. I was looking at Derek Favors because he's actually on my list, but he's pretty much going to be somewhat doubtful. Trey Lyles, good matchup. Is he getting the production? Any type of work? And the answer is no. So, sorry. These are just some of the things that I'm thinking about outside of just trying to get my lineups in. I'm always looking for value at different positions. As you can see here, Vucevic took a lot of the cash that's left. We're down to 4,000. We're looking for, for some value here in the mix. And as of right now, there's not really much to go around value-wise. We can go for Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis in my list. He is he's probably like number 5 on my list along with Mirotic. So that's definitely someone that you may want to consider thinking about. But I don't know. We'll see. Let's see, Terrence Jones. Yeah, he's not playing. Jokic is number 7 on my list of power forwards. However, you can pivot off to Juancho Hernangomez. He's been doing pretty well, guys, Juancho, and he definitely deserves a look. His DVP is looking pretty good. He's been, as of late, with everybody being injured, averaging over 25 fantasy points, and he's doing pretty well. He's giving you, at least, 5.5x every time he plays. Love is still a little banged up. He hasn't really been, he's played okay, but I'm not all that confident on Love for today, and the DVP is not really his favorite either. And is that price right? No, it's not right. Yeah. So anyway, this is going to be off the wall play, Juancho. All right. So here's a lineup that I have: Dennis Schroeder, Elfrid Payton, Bradley Beal, Tim Hardaway Jr., LeBron James, Taurean Prince, Enes Kanter, Juancho Hernangomez, and Nikola Vucevic. All right. Those are the plays that I have. And this is one of the lineups that I actually thinking about jumping into. Of course, if anything changes, I'm going to, of course, change some plays. But for the now, I'm going to go ahead and post this one in. All right, so I submitted that lineup. And we're going to create another lineup here. And guys, the beautiful thing about having your own projections is that the possibilities are endless, and you're able to see things from a different light. You know what I mean? You can see exactly how some of these fantasy gurus, quote unquote, or fantasy houses, that's what I like to call them, come up with some of these projections like, oh, okay, so I see why this guy was projecting this guy to do X amount of fantasy points or whatever, that type of thing. So let's say we're doing a rotation, a team B, right? Miles Turner is one of the next guys to look at. Let's turn this off here. Matchup is okay. It's pretty much average. Going against Boston. Let's see. Last time he played against Boston, he only had 18.4 fantasy points. He's at 6,200. When he was at 6,800, he went for 38.1. So, we're saying what, somewhere between 20 and 25 to 35 fantasy points, somewhere in there in the mix, right? So let's see, remove. We remove Vucevic, and then we can plug in somebody else. Okay. On my list of centers, I have Greg Monroe, Robin Lopez, Cody Zeller, Al Horford, Miles Turner, Jahlil Okafor, and Vucevic. Of course, y'all saw that Okafor was the first on my list of centers, but he is questionable. I would think, we can make a case for Turner, or we can make a case for Al Horford, in which, honestly, Al Horford has disappointed me more often than not this season. And so even though I'm supposed to have like a blind eye to that, I have not forgot. I have not forgotten. So he's been playing good as of late, but I ain't really feeling him like that. and the matchup is pretty much average. You know, I'm always looking for an above average matchup. Let's look at Monroe, the Moose. The matchup is it's whatever. All right, let's look at DraftKings here. I mean, not DraftKings, Fantasy Labs, and see who they have ranking high on the list here. Mason Plumlee, Rudy Gobert. Let's see, Vucevic, Steven Adams, Drummond, Zeller. I like Zeller. I mean, Zeller not minimal salary, but yeah. You know what? Let's plug in Zeller. It's a high enough over under for you, for you to get some good fantasy goodness out of it. And he does have that 40-point upside that a lot of people keep forgetting about. All right, so now we have 3,200 to work with. We can start moving some people around. We're gonna keep Juancho in there at minimal salary. We're gonna keep Taurean Prince at minimal salary. Let's see. We can flip out Cantor. Let's see, power forwards. Kevin Love is in the mix. Marcus Morris. Markieff Morris is in there. Mirotic. Tobias Harris. Jokic. So let's see. Let's look at what we have available in the power forward position. So we had Cantor, Ersan. All right, so let's do this. Let's move Juancho, Ersan. Keep Cantor in the mix. All right, we're at 2,500. Tim Hardaway Jr. Another person we can pivot off to from Tim Hardaway would be Evan Fournier. He's going to be somewhat lower owned. I know a lot of people were disappointed by him in the last outing, but he's definitely somebody that you could definitely target. A lot of people are sleeping on this guy that I'm going to play tonight, and he's playing at home. George Hill. I like George Hill. Matter of fact, let's go with the home crowd, a home strategy here. George Hill, 6,500. That leaves about 3,100 left. So George Hill, Elfrid Payton, Bradley Beal, Evan Fournier, LeBron James, Taurean Prince, Ersan Ilyasova, Enes Kanter, and Cody Zeller. Now, I could switch out Zeller and put back in Vucevic since he was already on my list. But we can, take this time out, and guess what? We can remove Taurean Prince and plug in Carmelo. Looks like a decent line, right? Cash, GPP, somewhere in there. So we have Zeller, Kanter, Ilyasova, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Evan Fournier, Bradley Beal, Elfrid Payton, and George Hill. I think that's pretty decent. Honestly, I think. I could be wrong. I have been wrong before, and I'm okay with that. But for the sake of this show, I'm going to plug that one in too. And so before I started doing the show, guys, I basically I spent about maybe 15, 30 minutes getting everything set up, from plugging in all the numbers into my portfolio to writing down who I felt were the best plays based on the amount of points that's awarded to each and every single position. So now in this part of the show, what I would like to do is I would like to talk about the stacks that you might want to consider playing for tonight. And honestly, right now, the stack that has the most on the team happens to be Utah. They have 4 players that you can target, and the 4 players that you can target on that, even though the over under is pretty low, you can target George Hill, Gordon Hayward. You can target Rodney Hood, and then if we were more trusting of Trey Lyles, I would say, excuse me, I would say plug in Trey Lyles, but I think that might not necessarily be a good idea. Trying to see who has somebody, Derek Favors I don't think has played at all. So I don't. If he was in play, I would say stack basically 1 through 4, on that team. But considering that there's not really any power forwards worth checking out, the only thing that you can do is basically plug one in for salary relief. And so I will go Hill, Hood, Hayward, and Diao, or I will go Hill, Hood, Hayward, Ingles, or Hayward, Johnson. So both of those guys, they've been really contributing to the cause and everything like that. Of course, Joe Johnson not really hitting value the last game, but before that, he's been pretty much there, between 5 and 7. Joe Ingles, even though his usage is a little bit lower, he's the more consistent of the bunch. I definitely probably will go with him over Joe Johnson. So again, you can do, Hill, Hood, Hayward, Ingles. That would be my stack, my top stack of the evening. They're in a favorable matchup against New York. New York gives up a lot of points to that position, to each and every single position. Another stack you can do is an Orlando stack, in which you can do a 4-man stack on this one too. You can do Peyton, Fournier, Vucevic, and Ross. Okay. Another stack is an Indiana stack. That's a 3-man stack, in which you can do Teague, Ellis, and Turner. Let's see. Another good stack to look at would be a Chicago stack, in which you could do Rondo, Mirotic, and Lopez. And then the Detroit stack, you could do Jackson, Morris, and Harris. Okay, so that's those are some stacks that you can definitely take a look at. And these are stacks from these teams, so that's just something to think about. Let's see, what else would I like to cover here while I have you all. Matter of fact, let's do one more lineup, and let's find the team that is projected to score a lot of points. So let's look at the Orlando team. Let's see. They're one of the slower teams. Indiana. The opponents are equally giving up 105 fantasy points there, or 105 points, I guess you say. Chicago. Okay, Detroit. Okay. Utah. All right. Yep. So there you have it, guys. Utah is going to end up being the top stack of the night. The over/under is not looking all that hot, but it's above 200, so it's definitely something to play with. Like I said, I will go if you want. You can switch up the stack where you could do. Let's see, is Rodney Hood? Rodney Hood 3,900. He's actually number 7 on my list. So what I would do is now that I see what I see, I would say Hill, Hayward, Ingles, Rudy. So let's do that one, okay? All right, let me move some of these players here. All right, so we got this here now. We have Hill, Hayward, I would say Rudy at 8,800. A little on the expensive side. He wasn't necessarily on my list on either one right at the top. Let's see here. Greg Monroe, Andre Drummond. Well, we're gonna plug him in anyway. And then Joe Ingles. All right, so we got those guys in: Hill, Hayward, Ingles, and Rudy. Okay, so now what we can do is we can go off the next of kin stack, so to speak. And the stack that I liked a lot was the Chicago stack. Rondo, Meritage, Lopez. Okay, no. Let's do Jackson, Morris. No, Jackson. What? Let's see. Oh, that's what it was. Okay, whatever. Um, let's do here's one that you might want to take a look at. Buddy Hield, 4,600. Sacramento, so it's gonna be a slow down game. But Buddy Hield has been getting a lot of usage as of late, more or less. Let's do it this way. Matchup was not all that great, but I mean the dude's been getting the minutes. So anytime he scores over 30 minutes, he's been producing. So plug the man in, got him in there. Another guy that we could take a look at. With this kind of money going, let's see. I would play Love, but he's still coming off the injury. If you want more, let's see. Let's remove Ingles. Let's just say and let's remove Rudy Gobert since he's not really on my list. Sometimes it's kind of hard to stick to, it's kind of challenging sometimes to stay to your strategy. But, like I said, I like to make sure that I do that. Rondo came off of a big game. He's on a back-to-back. I don't necessarily want to plug him in there. A guy that a lot of people might or might not be sleeping on might be TJ McConnell. He's in a favorable matchup against OKC. Now, will he capitalize on that? That's a different story. Not sure. We can only hope that he would. He's for the most part been somewhat consistent. So let's take a look at him real quick and see if we can look at some game log from him. You ever seen that guy shoot? He shoots kind of weird, by the way. You know, just kind of like a weird shooter. Um, at 5,000, only 20 fantasy points. Last season, 17 at minimal salary, and 17.3 last season as well. So you're expecting his floor to be at least what 20 to 24 fantasy points, and then his ceiling to be somewhere in the 30s, give or take, 5,600. He would need to make at least 25 or better to meet value. He can do it, but I don't think that's the best play. I could be wrong. He might. You never know. He may not be as intimidated by Russell Westbrook as other players. So let's go with Jackson. Jackson is 5,000, playing against a team that is coming from a back-to-back. We already got Healed in there. We can plug in, let's see, Giannis Antetokounmpo. We can plug in LeBron James. Okay. And for salary savings, let's plug in Zeller again as center. Now with Giannis, I ain't gonna lie to you guys. With Giannis, he's kind of weird. He has the highest usage, but he has so many boom or bust days, man. And now that I'm looking at all these blue numbers and hoping that he could have had a super high yellow, orange number, such as the Milwaukee, New York game. Yeah, he's definitely somebody that you can play for GPP, but that's not my play for tonight. So I'm going to take him off. I like Russell Westbrook. You know what? Let's see here. 218. Zeller. Let's see. Now, if y'all want to go completely contrarian, you know what? Let's do this. Because I feel like a lot of people are going to be. I feel like Philadelphia is going to be a popular stack in which Dario Saric, Rashawn Holmes, and Covington are going to be the ones in play. All right, so that puts me at 20 and some change. All right, let's find a cheap shooting guard, shall we? A guy that's in a good position tonight and had at least about a day's rest that you might want to consider playing is Monte Ellis. Okay. Can we fit Russell Westbrook in? Let's look at Philadelphia. Let's see what they're working with. see what their matchup is looking like. Covington, McConnell, Saric. If Jahlil Okafor is out, then Richaun Holmes is going to play the active center, and Sean Long is going to be the backup to that. We haven't really seen too much production from Sean Long. Don't know if we can really trust him. But you know what? You can take a gamble on him if you wanted to. You know, it was just a matter of what the news is saying on him. So I'm going to drop Saric and go for Richaun Holmes. And that puts me at 5,500 per player. So then I'll plug in Jackson again. And then it leaves me 6,000 for a power forward. And the player that I like a lot too, that a lot of people may or may not be thinking about, is Tobias Harris. So you have Westbrook, Jackson, Hield, Ellis, Gordon, Hayward, Robert Covington, Tobias Harris. You know what? As much as I like Covington, I'm switching back over to Carmelo Anthony because he's super cheap. Got 1,100 left. Mason Plumlee was at the top of that scenario. Let's look at Plumlee. Let's look and see what kind of work he has to bring to the mix here. Matchup is, it's whatever. Okay, so 22 one game, 30 next game. High over under, probably the highest of the evening. Does that mean that he's going to produce? You know, that is left up to, you know, one's imagination. We can do, let's see, Gary Harris or Will Barton. He's at 6,100 now. Gary Harris, that is. Will Barton at 65. Something to think about. Okay, we got Buddy Hield, Monte Ellis. Now, what we could do, you know what? Let's keep Zeller like we originally planned in this mix, because you know, he should be in a favorable matchup. I got 6,100 left. No, I'm sorry, 1,100 left. And instead of Monte, let's go with Fournier or Hardaway Jr. Fournier, Hardaway Jr. Let's look at it. Hardaway Jr. You know what? We'll just go Hardaway Jr. Call it a day. All right, guys. So we have Russell Westbrook, Reggie Jackson, Buddy Hield, Tim Hardaway Jr., Gordon Hayward, Carmelo Anthony, Tobias Harris, Richaun Holmes, and Cody Zeller. Okay. So those are the three lineups that I have. And we can do a quick review on those real quick. All right, so first lineup, we have Schroeder, Peyton, Beal, Hardaway Jr., LeBron James, Taurean Prince, Enes Kanter, Juancho Hernangomez, and Vucevic. Second one is Hill, Peyton, Beal, Fournier, James, Anthony, Ilyasova, Cantor, and Zeller. The last is Westbrook, Jackson, Hield, Hardaway Jr., Hayward, Anthony, Harris, Holmes, and Zeller. Okay. I don't know. Somewhere throughout the day, I'm going to find out more news on Zeller. Maybe I can find another pivot play off of him and go somewhere else. But otherwise, these are the lineups that I have for today. These are the lineups that I may or may not be playing all the way through. I may make some changes at the last minute. So we will see. In any case, this is your boy, Sean Blaque. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? I will talk to y'all in the near future. Get that money. Y'all have a blessed day.